Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /IDontWorkHereLady, where Karens mistake regular customers as employees, and the stories get frickin' wild. And in today's episode, we've got Karens throwing tantrums, attacking people in front of cops, and one OP tells a wholesome story about how she diffused a Karen situation by just being kind. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories today. Don't shake your heads too hard. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. A few years ago, I was working as a bartender at the same bar and grill as my fiancé. Our work uniform was a pair of black pants and a blue button-down shirt. We were on a break between lunch and dinner, and we decided to drop in to the Bed Bath & Beyond right down the road to create a gift registry for our upcoming wedding. The very helpful and polite staff gave us a UPC reader, which looked like Marvin the Martian's gun to scan items we wanted to place on the registry list. As we were debating which kitchen gear to scan, a woman pushing a cart approaches us, and she began blurting some question out. I quickly look up, and I respond, "I'm sorry, but we don't work here." This woman instantly twisted off. Her face went purple, and she hissed at me saying, "Yes, you do. I'm not stupid." To which I respond, "Look, I get it. We're all dressed alike, but we don't work here." As you might expect, this only further enraged her. She then went on to ask if we didn't work here, why we had the merchandise scanner, and I politely explained our upcoming wedding and the registry. Again, she was not having it. The woman cussed at us and then stormed off. Now, I guess she really didn't appreciate our laughter because she returned 2 more times to call us liars and to yell at us. What really did it was when she called my fiancé a good-for-nothing bitch, to which I respond kindly, "You can F right off, ma'am." This is when an actual employee shows up and informs her that she would be happy to help her if she just calmed down. And here's the thing, never tell a crazy person to calm down. Ever. This Karen goes into orbit how we were all liars and we're laughing at her behind her back, and we would all lose our jobs once she talked to the manager. I thought I was gonna have to physically restrain my soon-to-be wife from punching the psycho because of all the nasty things that were being said about her. The last thing we heard as we were exiting the building was the actual employee yelling something about a name tag. Since this day around 25 years ago, I've been stopped multiple times in the grocery store because I was wearing all black clothing, which is common in the restaurant and catering business. Usually, it only takes 2 instances of forceful statements of "I do not work here" with eye contact to get them to walk away. For reference, I'm not a small guy and really not somebody you'd want to mess with, but people are insane. I literally had to go hands-on with a gentleman who insisted that I owe him an apology for not assisting him. The guy had grabbed my shirt, pushed me into a shelf, and would not let go. The moral of the story is don't let anyone enter your personal space and practice situational awareness. The loonies do not always come with a sign. Yeah, with all the I Don't Work Here posts I've read, guys, that is very true. Like the fact that people can go from a nice, "can you please help me," to doing a complete 180 and turning psycho when they don't get helped is wild. It's also wild how some people just double down because they refuse to be wrong. But yeah, what a fantastic yet infuriating story. And this person comments, "You should have responded, 'No, sweetheart, I would never laugh at somebody behind their back, no matter how big of a moron they are. We're laughing right in front of your very stupid face.'" What a response that would have been. So I work a job as a service technician, and when this happened, I went to a new building that needed some warranty work done. The building had officially been handed over to the owners, which was a hotel. The contractors were still running about, doing deficiencies and odds and ends, but the hotel staff was on site training and such. I used to work for construction companies all the time, and I hated it because of the semantics of it all. They would be a stickler for rules inside the property at all times, but when it suited them, they would bend the rules, and I hate that. Anyhow, this building had a door close to where I was working, and I propped it open to go to my truck, maybe 20 feet from the door itself, a 5-second walk. The site supervisor, the head honcho on site, comes out and he sees me on the phone out there and he asked if I propped the door open. The thing is, there was another door propped open just on the other end of the hallway, but it led to a loading bay away from the street, so it was okay to have that one open because there was a worker there. I respond, yes, I'm just loading tools right now. I don't want to walk all the way around the building as I have a lot of tools to bring in. The guy was reasonable, and he said, sure son, not a problem. Just please remember to close that door as we don't want a hooligan coming in and stealing a brand new TV or something. I respond, alright, no problem, I can do this for you. I then made a joke saying that I might look dumb, but I'm a decently smart technician in a complicated trade. The guy laughs and goes, alright, that makes me feel better. Plus, he called me son, so that was nice. That said, cut to maybe 10 minutes later, and I'm on the phone outside, in clear view of the door, and his sidekick foreman guy is there. He's a young dude, small tiny guy who tried hella hard to compensate. I could hear the way he was talking to his employees that the dude's a D-bag. I come inside as he's walking towards me, and the guy screams and goes, hey, if you work here, you should know the rules. Don't prop that door open. Got it? Now, I had time today, and I didn't like being yelled at, so I simply said, I'm right here. Don't worry, no one's getting in. I spoke with the site super, and he said it's cool. The guy stops all bewildered and such, and he responds with, do not open that door again. I asked him why he's yelling, and he goes, hey, you listen to me when you're on this site. Do you understand? I'm the boss and I don't want you questioning me again. When I give you an order, all you need to say is yes, sir. And this is where I goofed. I wasn't wearing my company shirt because it was hot in the room I was working in. I was in a crawl space above a kitchen and I just had on a t-shirt. I simply look at that guy and I said, A, don't you yell at me or speak to me like that again, and B, I'm here on behalf of the owners of this building. I do not work for you guys in any shape or form. If you have a problem with me, go run to your boss or go to the owners and tattle on me. Hearing me say that, he kind of stopped and then tried to say something. But you know when you've got someone dead to rights and they kind of try to say something? Exactly this. The guy didn't know what to do at all. He eventually just walked away, mumbling something about effing idiots, and I just chuckled to myself. And that was a great feeling, where you don't answer to someone and they can't say crap to you. And it's not gonna reflect negatively on your company to say, hey, don't be a jerk and yell at me. I swear, some people's lives suck so much that this is how they feel in control of your lives. Yeah, stories like this make me not miss the trades at all, guys. We're often super high testosterone dudes go on mega power trips when they're the boss. And OP's right, the satisfaction knowing that they don't have to answer to this a-hole foreman must have felt so nice. Like, I remember working on site one time with these two guys from another company, and I have no idea what happened. Something was measured wrong or something, but the boss they were working with literally checked the measurements, screamed at this 18-year-old kid, calling him effing useless, and then took this guy's measuring tape and threw it against the concrete wall, shattering it, and told him to go home and never come back. Like, this poor kid, right? All he said in return was, you owe me an effing measuring tape, you old goof. Don't get mad at me because your wife's ugly. Like, I will never forget that. I just remember standing there thinking, thank goodness that guy's not my boss. But anyways, on to the next post. So my father and I operate a small excavation/landscaping business. So it's pretty uncommon for me to be mistaken as anything else. But there is a campground nearby where it happens so often that it stopped being funny, and it started to be annoying. You see, the people in the campground own their sites, and so they're responsible for any general maintenance or improvements on their site. They often call us to do things like building stone driveways or building stone pads for sheds, or just general landscaping. Now, the campground itself has employees, including some younger guys who maintain the roadways with small landscaping tractors. I also use a small landscaping tractor in my work, so I do understand the confusion. A few days ago, I'm working there. I'm building a driveway for a lady, and as usual, I'm wearing my noise-canceling headphones while I do my tractor work, as they do double duty for hearing protection and entertainment. Also, I generally work alone, and I don't like being bothered. At some point, I hear a car honk, so I turn and look, and there's a man hanging out of a truck on the roadway near me. The guy's gesticulating with his hands and moving his mouth, so it's obvious that he's been trying to get my attention for some time now. So I remove my headphones and I shut the tractor off, and I say, "Hey, what's going on, man?" The guy says something along the lines of, "Well, it's pretty damn hard to talk to you when you're wearing those headphones." I just give him a friendly smile, and I jokingly say, "That's the idea." It's clear from the look on his face that he doesn't find this joke funny at all. He then says, "Well, I have a question to ask you." I give him a blank, unaffected stare, and I say, "Okay." The guy then starts talking about how the water's not turned on his lot, and he needs to cook and take a shower, blah blah blah. Why isn't his effing water on? At this point, I'm kind of assuming he thinks I work here, but the guy has an attitude and I'm in no mood to make this easy for him. I respond, "Oh." I then just calmly stare at him while the guy fumes silently for a few seconds, and then he asked impatiently, "Well?" I just shrug at him and say, "Well, what?" He then throws his hands up in exasperation and he yells, "How do I get my water turned on?" I give him a confused look and I say, "I've got no clue, buddy." To which he responds with, "Well, can you find someone who does?" I respond, "Nope." I then take a swig from my water bottle while wearing a bored expression, and the guy looks around, almost in a "is anyone seeing this" kind of look. And then he says, "I'm gonna go find your boss." I just smirk and say, "Good luck with that." I then put my headphones back on as the guy fumes and drives away. I'm not sure if he ever found the campground owner or got his water turned on, but I didn't see him again. And here's a bonus feel-good story. This was a few years ago in the same campground. As I was working, this sweet little old lady walks over to the campsite I was at, and she very politely said, "Excuse me, sir." So I stopped and said, "Yes, ma'am, can I help you?" She then gestures to her own campsite a little ways away. It had a small trailer on it, and she points to a large tree branch on the roof. She then says, "A branch fell on my roof, and I can't get it down. Could you help me? I have a ladder." I just smiled at her, and I said, "Absolutely, I can," and then proceed to climb up there and throw it down. When I was done, she said, "Oh, thank you so much. I'll be sure to tell Lane, who owns the campground, what a nice guy you are." I just laughed a bit, and I said, "Well, I don't actually work for Lane." She looked incredibly embarrassed, and she started apologizing profusely. But I told her it was fine. I was happy to help. She went inside and got me a soda, insisting I take it, so I did. That was my good deed for the day. The moral of the story is ask nicely and you'll get help. But make assumptions and get mad, and I'll screw with you for the fun of it. And that's the thing, right? Like a lot of these I don't work here lady stories, I believe, if people approached others kindly, a lot of the times, people would be willing to help, right? Like instead of acting aggressive, screaming at people, "Show me where the beans are." Maybe they should try the polite approach. "Excuse me, I'm not sure if you work here or not, but..." and then proceed to ask the question. But then again, if this is how people acted, these super entertaining stories would not exist. Thank goodness for Karens. So I've been debating on sharing this for a while, and I finally decided that it kind of does belong here. About 6 years ago, I worked at a retirement home, giving the residents a mock dining experience. Myself and the other waitstaff would help bring in residents, and we'd end up serving tables of 4 to 5 people. They would often sit together in their own groups, but unless they were volatile, we'd sit them together to keep people company and keep service times down. We'd give them a super simplified menu with 2 specials of the day, a soup of the day, and various retirement essentials like prune juice for those that needed them. It wasn't the easiest job I've had, but it was really fulfilling, and I made friends with many of the residents during my time there, even quietly attending one of their funerals. And let me tell you, you would be surprised how little you know about someone you think you knew until you're at their funeral and their family starts to talk about their life. That said, I quit after a while to pursue new jobs, but one of my great aunts was sent to respite care after a surgery, so I visited her to keep her company. As luck would have it, she was sent to receive care for her month-long stay in the same retirement home I used to work at. A lot of the old residents still remembered me, and a couple of the kitchen staff were still the same. I made sure that my aunt knew where all the activities were, which ones she could do for free, which ones were worth paying for, and then sat in on dinner to keep her company. And this is when the incident happened. After the waitress had taken our order, I excused myself to use the restroom. On my way back, I had my arm grabbed by a lady who we'll call Carol. Carol says to me, "I'm ready to order." Now, I was a bit caught off guard, but I quickly realized what was going on. As I said, I worked here before, so she seemed to expect I'd take her order. I respond, I'm sure they'll be by soon, Carol. I don't have this section anymore." She then lets go of my arm, and I scurry back to my table. Carol seemed really confused and distraught, and I heard the other people at her table trying to explain what happened to her. Everything seemed fine for a couple of minutes, and then she starts crying. I did feel upset, but I can't do anything, so I just let it happen, and I try not to let it distract me, and I just talked with my aunt a bit more. A few more minutes pass, and her waiter came by to take orders, starting with the person on her right and going clockwise around the table, until they got to Carol, who was still crying. We'll call her waiter Dave. Dave says to her, "And what can I get you today, Carol?" Carol screams at him and says, "You are not my waiter." Dave, looking a bit confused, says, well, I'll be taking your order today." At this point, Carol gets upset and she throws a tantrum and she starts shouting, "You are not my waiter. That nice girl Jessica, not my real name, always serves us. Go get her." Dave just looks confused and he says, Carol, I've been serving you all year, remember? I don't think we even have a Jessica on staff." She then screams and says, "How dare you lie to me? She served me just last night. She always serves me." At this point, Dave changes tactics and he says, I think Jessica is sick tonight, so she can't make it in today. May I please get your food?" At this point, something's clicked with me. Carol's having none of it and she's refusing service. So I excused myself from my table and I quietly came over and tapped Dave on the shoulder. He turned around, looking confused, and I just kind of plucked his book out of his hand and walked up to the table while he just stood there alarmed and clearly unsure if he should punch me in the face or find out what's going on. I then walk over and I say, I'm so sorry about that, Carol. Can I help you out? We're serving item 1 and item 2 today, but for you, we always have smiles as well. Carol, seeing me there to take her order, her mood changes instantly. And she says, "See, I knew she was still here. Now I'll have a..." She then proceeds to tell me what she wants. After I finished taking the order, I just quietly gave Dave back his book, and I asked if the kitchen supervisor was still the same guy. It was. So I told Dave to tell him what happened and to come get me when it was time to bring Carol her meal. It turns out that Carol had recently started losing track of time, and while they weren't sure if it was Alzheimer's, dementia, or something else, she had just started demanding recently to talk to staff that no longer work there, staff that never existed, and family members and friends they knew nothing about. The supervisor came by a bit later and quietly checked if I still had a food handler certification so he could feel safe letting me handle the delivery of her food. The staff thanked me for helping with the situation by comping my meal. I still think about Carol sometimes, and I often wonder if what I did was actually right, or if it might have made the situation harder to handle in the future for them. I'm still not sure I honestly did the right thing at all. I didn't work there anymore, but for Carol, I would work wherever she thought I did. So that's my I Don't Work Here story. I hope you enjoyed. You know what, in my opinion, that was such a kind thing for OP to do, even if she thought it would make things harder in the future. And this person comments, when dementia starts to set in, there really are no right answers, other than to be nice when possible. And I think this is perfectly put, guys. I recently saw a post where somebody was talking about their mom and how they deal with her little episodes. And she said the best thing you can do is just fully agree and go along with what the person does. Because trying to bring them into the present and telling them that they are wrong can fully confuse, worry, or even infuriate them, causing distress. But yeah, what a wonderfully wholesome post. And guys, you know I can't let you go without a psycho Karen post, so listen to this last story in this episode. So this is my first time making a post, and to this day, it's still the craziest thing that's ever happened to me. To kind of give people a picture of myself at the time this happened, I work for the state, dealing with public benefits and assistance. I'm also 6 foot 2 inches tall, and I used to be a powerlifter, and I weigh 340 pounds, so yeah, I'm a big guy. The dress code for the state is business casual, unless you're working at the central office or a public-facing position. I worked on the phones 90% of the time, and on the day in question in 2018, I was wearing the one and only suit I own. Now, this was a few years ago, so some things will be paraphrased as my memory's faulty. Few too many blows to the head in my youth. All that said, I DM for a D&D game every Thursday at a friend of mine's house. I was leaving work on this day, and my friend called me and asked if I could pick up some new dice, as his 3 dogs decided that his dice looked like treats. So I hit a local game store on my way to his place. While I was there, I noticed a very frustrated young woman trying to convey something to the owner. She was using American Sign Language. This is the only other language that I understand other than English, so I tapped her on the shoulder and I signed to her to see if I could help her out. She explained that she was looking into getting into D&D with some of her friends from school, so I asked her some questions and I found out they've never played, but they want to play. I help her get everything she'll need for new players, and she was so happy that someone could help her out using sign language, and she thought it was really thoughtful of the owner to learn. I explained to her that I'm not the owner. I was just an avid D&D fan and I was stopping in for some dice. She then looked at me confused and signed, "You don't work here." I respond, "No, I just wanted to help since I know sign language." We both laughed. So getting back to the dice, that's when Karen strikes. The woman starts yelling at me, wanting to know why the owner was spending all of his time helping a cute young woman, but would not be bothered to help an elderly customer who just wanted to get her grandchild a video game. That's when I say, this place doesn't sell video games. And that's when Karen explodes on why does a game store not sell video games, and what is she gonna do now? She then waddles over to me and she starts poking me in the chest, ranting something along the lines of, I should be nicer to older customers, as they're the ones keeping my store open. At this point, I pull out my state employee badge and I point at it and I say really slow, "Lady, I do not work here, and you can go next door to get video games." I then explained that by poking me in the chest, she was guilty of assault. At this point, she sputters and then slaps me in the face. When I started to talk again, she tried to slap me again. I just got ticked off. I then yelled at her at the top of my lungs that if she touched me one more time, that I would defend myself and she wouldn't like the results. The owner's called the police and he has the phone on speaker. We all hear when dispatch states the officer's 2 minutes out. She then screams and tries to hit me again. I catch her by the wrist and that's when the police show up. As soon as Karen sees the cops, she starts going off on how I hit her and she was just defending herself and that I need to be arrested. I just let go, raise my hands, and then Karen kicks me in the shins and then slaps me in front of the cop. The owner of the shop then says that's the 3rd or 4th time she's assaulted that customer. Officer 1 then places Karen in handcuffs and he escorts her to the car. I then get questioned. The officer comes back in and he says Karen's been detained and she's demanding a supervisor. The owner then pipes in with his side of the story, and he explains that Karen assaulted me many times before they came. At this time, the sergeant shows up. Long story shorter, Karen was arrested for assault, and hell yes, I pressed charges. From what I was told by the sergeant, this was her 12th incident for similar issues, but it's the first time she actually got violent with someone. I find that freaking hilarious, guys. 12 times this has happened, and on this day, she decides to attack someone of OP size. Like 6'2", 340 pounds, that's the last person you'd want to attack. Repeatedly, I might add. Like, the self-entitlement is next level, and honestly, it's never worth going to jail for anything like this. Wait, let me say that again. Nothing is ever worth going to jail over. That's what I was trying to say. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/malicious compliance episode, where Psycho Karens are once again at it again. And the stories are wild. Go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.